Is commercial surrogacy legal in the US? You may be asking this question if you're not based in the US and you're considering growing your family through surrogacy with the help of a US based fertility professional. Or you may have heard the term commercial surrogacy and thought it sounded like a weird post apocalyptic baby making factory type operation, and you thought to yourself, there's no way that's legal. Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about whether commercial surrogacy is legal in the US. I'm Corlandos Scott, a surrogacy attorney in Los Angeles, and that simply means that my practice revolves around helping people grow their families through assisted reproductive technologies like surrogacy, even commercial surrogacy. I know, that was a bit of a spoiler. Well, today's topic is around the topic of commercial surrogacy. So I'm going to talk about what is commercial surrogacy and what happens in commercial surrogacy. I'll discuss some of the legal implications with regards to individual state laws, and we'll also talk about whether commercial surrogacy is good or bad. Let's just dive in. So before we explore whether it's legal or illegal, let's talk about what exactly is commercial surrogacy. Well, simply put, commercial surrogacy refers to any surrogacy arrangement where the surrogate receives payment. And I should clarify, I don't simply mean any payment. I mean payment for being pregnant. A surrogate can receive reimbursement for her out-of-pocket expenses and for related medical expenses, and that would not necessarily be considered her being paid. It would simply be her getting reimbursed. So when you're talking about commercial surrogacy, we're talking about a surrogate who is getting paid over and above her reimbursements. So you may be asking how commercial surrogacy plays out. How is it structured? Well, outside of the component of the surrogates being entitled to payment, the process plays out just like an uncompensated or altruistic surrogacy arrangement. Here are the big picture steps. Embryos are created. The embryos can be created using the egg of the hopeful mother and the sperm of the hopeful father, or a donor can be used to obtain eggs or sperm. However, now in most surrogacy arrangements, there is no genetic material contributed by the surrogate. That's why most times we refer to surrogates as gestational carriers, because they are simply carrying and gestating the hopeful parent's child. Now, once we have embryos, we transfer one or sometimes two of the embryos into the surrogate's uterus, and we hope and we pray that they implant or take or stick or whatever you want to call it. Now, once that happens, we get the positive pregnancy results and we're off to the races. Now, the hopeful parents are responsible for all of the related expenses of supporting the pregnancy and anything the surrogate needs to achieve that goal. Now, the next step is for the hopeful parents to obtain a court order that establishes their parental rights. Now, many states allow you to do this prior to the birth of the child, but some states, they require you to wait until after the birth. There's even a few states that require a post-birth adoption process in order for you to solidify your parental rights. Now, here's a pro tip. Stay away from these states if you can help it. I mean, imagine that, having to adopt your own child. But anyway, that's the process or the structure of a surrogacy arrangement, whether it's a commercial surrogacy arrangement or an altruistic surrogacy arrangement. So let's talk about whether commercial surrogacy arrangements are legal. And if so, what are the legal implications that you should consider? Well, at the risk of being anticlimactic, the answer is yes. Commercial surrogacy is legal in the United States. But there is a caveat. Not all of the United States are, I guess you could say, united in their views on commercial surrogacy. So the complete answer is that commercial surrogacy is legal in the United States in certain states of the United States. Make sense? Let's talk about California, my home base. In California, commercial surrogacy is legal, and there is a considerable amount of legal precedent and state laws that give us very clear instruction on how to have a legally successful commercial surrogacy journey. And as long as all the medical and the legal requirements have been complied with, everything should go smoothly and as intended. And that's why you'll hear many people say that California offers one of the safest legal environments and the friendliest surrogacy processes in the United States. In California, there's no restriction on how much a surrogate can get paid. There's not even any laws that ban traditional surrogacy. Now, that's the very rare instance where the surrogate who is carrying the baby is also the egg donor whose eggs went into creating the embryo. So, in a traditional surrogacy arrangement, the woman giving birth to the child is genetically the child's mother. Yeah. Again, not many hopeful parents opt for this arrangement because of the additional element of having the surrogate be genetically related to the child she's carrying. However, California is so supportive of surrogacy that it allows traditional surrogacy. Now, the reason that California allows surrogacy arrangements is because it has taken the time and the effort to create clear guidelines that satisfy protecting the public interest. Now, here's a rundown of those guidelines. On the medical side of things, a surrogate must be screened to determine if she's healthy enough to serve as a surrogate. And she must also give her informed consent in participating in a surrogacy arrangement. Now, on the legal side of things, there are a number of protections. Both parties to a surrogacy arrangement, the surrogate and her spouse, as well as both hopeful parents, they must be represented by separate independent legal counsel. Then a surrogacy contract must be drafted, negotiated, agreed upon, and it even has to be signed in front of a notary. Now, all this has to happen prior to the surrogate undergoing the embryo transfer procedure. Now, California even gets into what the surrogacy contract must cover. A good surrogacy contract will at least include a few things that I'll run through. The names of the parties, the date the contract was executed or signed, you can say, a statement of the applicable laws affecting the agreement, the origin of the gametes used to create the embryos, essentially whether the embryo was created with the sperm and egg of the parents or whether the sperm and or egg came from a donor. That's in the contract. It also includes a recital of the risks and responsibilities of each party. It also includes how the financial aspects will be handled, agreements around selective reduction, termination of the pregnancy, and who makes important decisions relating to the pregnancy and childbirth. So as you see, California is comfortable with commercial surrogacy, in part because there are very clear and strict rules that participants have to follow in order to legally engage in the process. However, like I said, not all states are united in allowing commercial surrogacy, so you should also consider the legal implication of states that ban commercial surrogacy. 3 that come to the top of my head are Louisiana, Nebraska, and Michigan. Now, in Louisiana, there are certain circumstances where the state will entertain surrogacy, but they are very, very, very specific, and they exclude several hopeful parents' circumstances. So be sure to check out my video on states where surrogacy is not allowed. Then you have Nebraska that says that a compensated surrogacy contract is automatically void and unenforceable. So if you did venture to do a compensated surrogacy arrangement in Nebraska, the rights that you think you're outlining in a contract may be worthless because the contract can't be enforced. Let's say your Nebraska surrogacy contract said the surrogate agrees not to do drugs or skydive. That's a pretty sensible ask, right? And you think that because you have a contract that says that, you'd be protected legally if your surrogate just started doing drugs while jumping out of a plane. Wrong. Nebraska says that the contract is unenforceable and the contract is void. So it's really not even worth the paper it was written on. Meanwhile, Michigan, my alma mater, takes a very similar stance to Nebraska. That's so disappointing, Michigan. In Michigan, surrogacy contracts, compensated or uncompensated, are void and unenforceable. Sounds familiar, right? But Michigan ups the ante and outdoes Nebraska because Michigan says that a commercial surrogacy arrangement, paying a woman to act as a surrogate, is a felony, and it's punishable by up to 5 years behind bars and a $50,000 fine. Wow. Yet and still, there are some people who still choose to jump into surrogacy arrangements in states like Michigan. I always ask myself, why? You know what? Now that I think about it, it may be that they just haven't seen my YouTube channel and they don't know any better. So do me a favor. Please look right below this video. find the like button and click the heck out of it. Just click away. That way YouTube may share this video with someone in Michigan. In fact, go ahead and share this video with someone you know, and maybe they'll share it with someone they know, and maybe this video will make its way to someone, anyone in Michigan, and hopefully save them some heartache and possibly jail time. Very recently, a married couple from Michigan, Jordan and Tammy Myers of Grand Rapids, they experienced a small portion of the potential heartache of doing surrogacy in Michigan. Now, the amazing mother, Tammy, is a cancer survivor and wasn't able to carry the twins that she wanted to have. Now, when she was diagnosed with cancer, they had been trying for baby number 2. Now, after being told they wouldn't be able to have another child naturally, they had Tammy's eggs retrieved to create the embryos that they would later use. Then, they found a surrogate who was willing to help them grow their family. So the surrogate carried and gave birth to the Myers' twins. However, things turned pretty sour when the Myers wanted to have their names placed on the birth certificate and be recognized as the legal parents of the twins. Well, a Michigan court denied the couple's parental rights. The court said it has no authority to enforce the surrogacy contract and declared the contract void and unenforceable. The state's laws forced the couple to go through the process of adopting their own children. Imagine that. They had to adopt children that they were genetically and biologically the parents of. And they had to go through all the typical processes that are customary for adoption. They had to submit themselves to home visits from a social worker. They had to answer questions about their upbringing and about their parenting style. They had to submit themselves to criminal background checks and even submit reference letters testifying to their character for their own children. They even had to get temporary permission from the surrogate and her husband to see their own children. Wow. The only silver lining for the Myers is that they didn't go to jail for 5 years and have to fork over 50 grand in fines. Can you imagine if that had happened? A couple fights to grow their family, they're successful in having healthy twins, and then they go to prison for 5 years and pay 50 grand in fines? And the children become wards of the state simply because they were born via surrogacy. The even greater irony is that after their 5-year prison stint, they would likely have trouble even adopting their own biological children because they're now ex-convicts and they're $50,000 poorer than they were when they went into prison. And they're probably jobless at that point too. So the moral of the story is, call me before you decide to do surrogacy in a state that is unfriendly towards surrogacy. So that still leaves the question of whether commercial surrogacy is a good or bad thing. Well, in order to form an opinion on that, it's helpful to look at exactly what the compensation is for. Now, this is super important because most of the controversy around commercial surrogacy revolves around why the surrogate is getting paid in the first place. Most of the opponents of commercial surrogacy use the argument that commercial surrogacy is paying for a baby. They even go as far as to compare surrogacy to human trafficking, saying that you're paying someone to give you a human. The commerce, though, in commercial surrogacy is not the same as the commerce in buying home goods on Amazon. This is not like a shopping spree of some type. The commercial aspect of surrogacy simply involves exchange of value and the recognition of the surrogate contributing certain things, foregoing certain things, and enduring certain things, all in service to help another person grow their family. So let me be very clear. A hopeful parent who is going through surrogacy is not paying a surrogate for a baby. The surrogate is being compensated for the discomfort, the pain, the suffering, the inconvenience that she willingly endures on behalf of the hopeful parents. She's reimbursed for pre-pregnancy and pre-birth expenses, as well as post-birth expenses too, and that includes things like reasonable and necessary living expenses. Now, all of these compensation points happen regardless of whether a healthy, beautiful baby is born. Hear that again. She's going to earn or be due those payments regardless of whether a healthy, beautiful baby is born, so payment isn't hinging on giving over a baby. So the compensation you see is tied to the surrogate's actions and not the result of a successful delivery or handing over a baby. So if you ask me, I say yes, commercial surrogacy is a good thing. But let me know your opinion in the comments below. What do you think about compensated surrogacy? Also, if you are considering growing your family through surrogacy, I have something for you. It's a free gift. It's called the Surrogacy Roadmap, and it walks you through each step of the surrogacy process from beginning to end. So if you want that, just click the link below and you'll be taken to thesurrogacyroadmap.com. That's thesurrogacyroadmap.com, and get your hands on that valuable resource for free. See you in the next episode.